So now let's say you want to design a succulent garden and you don't know anything about this and you don't have a local nursery or anything. So you go online and look up succulents before you go to YouTube and get everybody's friggin' opinion on how to do everything, okay? Just go on and look succulents up. Start with Wikipedia, go down to their bibliography and maybe branch out from there. Go to images and look at different images and write the names down of the ones that you like, and then just make sure they don't get 60 feet tall underneath the eaves of your house, okay? So a little bit, when I talk about species, I'm talking about a learning situation and plant selection. And then after that, plant whatever you like together. Remember, they have unless there's one that really has a water requirement higher than everything else, keep them in the same beds. Plant them by water requirements, okay, and then colors that you like and shapes and everything. There is no set rule. This is the beauty of it. You can have the most unique succulent garden there is and never even seen one, okay? You can line them with brick on angles. You can get rocks. You can have them bordered with wood. You can have all kinds of beds formations. We've talked about forming beds before in some of the horticultural talks, but materials to make beds are really varied and to farm them. And if you're going to grow plants that are considered odd, probably in your area, if you're not right here in Southern California, you might want an odd border, okay? Or no border. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want a hillside. Maybe you want to incorporate rocks into your succulent garden, and that can be anywhere from rocks that are boulder-like down to almost sort of like walk-on rocks where you make stream-looking patterns, and you can use different colors depending on the availability and where you live, okay? So now, a good way to acquire succulents, if you live in an area where a lot of people grow them, it's called picking. And I know that anybody that sells succulents will hate me because I'm telling you this, but that's just too bad. You go out and you make cuttings, okay? We used to carry a pair of clippers in a plastic bag with us and go walk the neighborhood when we lived in Shell Beach because there was thousands of species of succulents, and I had probably 400 or 500 species in my little yard, okay, growing at all different sizes. So again, when you're making a cutting, you just want to make sure you get enough of the stem to either remove the leaves or what, because remember, you're cutting it off. You're not getting any roots. You don't have to have roots, okay? So you can remove some and expose nodes, okay? That's how simple it is to make a cutting. Now, not every succulent does well from a cutting, okay? Some of them do better from seed or buying a mature plant that hasn't been disrupted. And here's the perfect example of this. What this was originally was about the size of this big around, was one nice big clump I had, okay? And I had it in a bigger pot than this, and when I decided to try to put it in the ground, all of these fell apart in my hands. So I had to make a decision. So I have 3 of these, this size, doing this, where I don't know what I would do with all these damn things. So, again, we're going to talk briefly about light and placement, okay? Many succulents will grow in the dark or in the sun. Now, the dark doesn't mean down in the dungeon next where the wine cellar is, okay? In the dark means low light planting like the north side of your house. Some things, as I described before, like many of the crassulas, will be darker and more robust in lower light and grow very well, okay? And then, so what you need to also do, and this is what I'm bringing this up for, this leads me right into reading and studying. Horticulture in any form about any kind of plant pretty much has an enormous amount of information available today, okay? What's amazing is probably the oldest cultivated plant, one of the oldest ones that were actually cultivated for ornamental use is the rose. And when the orchid came along in about 1890 in England, it surpassed every other type of plant in terms of trying to acquire new species, studying them, identifying them, rendering them. The Woodward case is named for a gentleman named Woodward that made a glass wooden case to put his orchids in. because he can only have so many, and that is still considered a standard in small orchid growers, is the Woodwardian case. Okay, so reading is essential, and the reason all of this study is essential is you need to know heights and widths, because right here we're not looking at mature plants. We're just not. This is responding like a mature plant, and it's kind of exciting because I really didn't know there was. Is that dirt? Okay, that's just dirt. Or is that, oh no, is that scar? Let me see. See, if you look at this leaf right here, something's been crawling around on there, okay? And then I want to talk about one problem that I know of. There are insects that eat everything, okay? Succulents seem to be less affected by insect infestations than most categories and types of plants. I don't know if it's just because they taste bad. I don't know if their sugar contents are low. I think it's a combination of both. Some of them have very thick cuticles, and they're hard to penetrate. But in the aloe species, or aloe, like many people call it aloe, but I believe it is actually aloe. It's 3 syllables. 4 letters or 3 syllables. Pretty amazing. But when you look at it, which are these pretty, this typifies a lot of aloes. Some get huge. There's actually tree aloes. But now what we're seeing in Southern California is aloe mite damage. And you see these, and I'm going to bring one in. I'm going to cut up a couple of stems, and I'm going to show you this on camera. Okay? I didn't have enough time, and I couldn't find my saw this morning, so we'll bring those tomorrow. But these big grotesque growths, it gets on the flowers and make the flowers look like hard, almost like weapon type, like like a head beater. And then down inside the various growing points. Oh, a pointer. It's appeared. Okay, so when you're down in these growing points, such as down in here like this, you'll see these large, they look like ulcerations almost, is a good word if it was medical and it was for a human. And the aloe mite is a mite you don't see. It infests the interior, it gets into the side of the tree, and gets inside the plant, and it has an enzyme, part of its makeup, to digest the aloe sap that actually causes this disfigurement. Okay, it's not like a vector, okay, like the hulong beetle or some of these other vectors or the shot-hole borer or whatever. The mite itself, enzyme, is what causes the mallee in the aloe. Right now, there's no cure. I'm going to try to get a product called Merit, which is a macrochloroplid, which there's been a lot of dissertation on, but it is a systemic insecticide. I'm going to see if I can turn this around a little bit. And if you live in high cold areas, many of these will grow in a sunny window, and you can keep them. And if you don't put them in big gargantuan pots, you can take them out in the spring for the spring and the summer, or move them around in your home. But they like more light inside than they do outside, okay? Just remember that. But if you put them in a hot, burning, sunny window from, like, say, noon to 6, you might burn the thing up. So consider that, too, how hot that window gets. But you can do these inside and outside. My grandmother in St. Louis had a whole bunch of different kinds of succulents all over the house. So,
give me my pencil back, por favor.
Pencil is coming. So, hopefully these are little tips that are helpful. I don't think I'm making any groundbreaking discoveries or anything. Most of these kinds of dissertations are pretty common with succulent growers, but a lot of them don't talk about any kind of fertilizer, how you just don't need it. Well, find out what kind of water you have and how advantageous or disadvantageous the water is for growing plants. You might be surprised, especially if it's municipal.
Especially if your succulents haven't flowered since you've owned them.
Well, that's one thing, and that could be light. That could be the water. That it could just be too damn cold, and they're just not responding. So you have to look at a lot of things. Another tip that we like to talk about when we do any kind of indoor or bring up the topic of indoor are under pot heating. There's a couple of nice companies. We're going to bring down and show you one company that was nice enough to send me one of these things. They're just a simple little cord that's waterproof that goes into a little transformer, and they stay at 72 degrees. and you just lay them around on a table, put the pot on top of them, okay? You can either do it on 2 strands on bigger pots or 1 strand on a smaller pot. So they're really versatile, and they come in all kinds of different sizes and lengths. They can change your world.
And be patient with us. We will make videos to show what we are talking about.
We will be building and improvising as time goes on. Soon we will be back in the dungeon part of the office here, called the warehouse, actually, potting and planting and things like that. So I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope some of this has been informative, and if it's redundant, good. That means you're on it and probably already having a great time. All right, so thank you so much. Again, this is John, and I'm from JPW, and we're all part of Shop Talk AKA.
Have a wonderful day. Subscribe and leave us comments. Thank you.